I'm Debbie Williamson, coordinator of officials for the American and the Big East, and I want to talk a little bit about the new rules changes for the year.
How many rule changes are there?
Gosh,
That
one
many?
thing I don't know. There's 20, I don't know, more than 20 total.
Okay.
Probably not, but half of those that the media would even, or that people would even recognize. So some of them are administrative in nature. Some of them have to do with uniforms. 7 at least have to do with uniforms.
Okay, so talk about the ones that we would recognize and how they impact the game.
Okay. I mean, obviously we're going to 4 10-minute quarters. We're having a media timeout at the 5-minute mark, and I've been visiting every campus and explaining how that can actually occur. It may not be at the 5, it may be under. It actually, if the coach calls a timeout above it, it could actually be above and wipe out that 5 minutes. So that's significant because if a coach calls a timeout, say at 9:45 in the first quarter, there will not be another timeout for the rest of the game. That's just not common in our game because we've had these every 4-minute stoppages now for years. Now, if they don't call it, you're still not going to have one until 5 or under 5, and that'll be the only one. Coaches only get 3:30s and a full, so you're going to lose a 30 going into the second half. So they'll have to know when to use those because we also have a significant change in the last minute of the game where you can use a timeout to actually advance the ball into the front court on a new possession. So after a made basket, we're under a minute. If they call a timeout before a player passes or dribbles, they can actually get that throw in at the hash mark in the front court where the coaching box line is on the table side. They will throw in from there instead of under the basket. So you have to use your timeout to buy yourself that opportunity. But that is the option to advance, and again, that timeout has to be taken before a player passes or dribbles. So just the discipline of how coaches are wanting to use this, and I think I've visited all but 3 schools so far and spent time in their practices, and almost everyone's spending time on last-minute situations, throw-ins from that table side hash mark with a few seconds left, and just the philosophies behind how to use our timeouts and how to use option to advance. Another significant change is we have no more one-and-ones. We will shoot 2 free throws on the 15th foul of every quarter. So the foul count will reset at the beginning of every quarter to 0, and then we'll shoot 2 on the 5th, except in overtime, and because overtime is basically an extension of the 4th period.
Wow.
So those are just a few that we've talked about in practices, especially the timing of the timeouts, the strategy behind the option. Another significant change is that there are going to be 3 times that you do not get a full 10 seconds or a new 10 seconds in the backcourt. Used to, it goes out of bounds, you get a new 10.
Right.
Now, timeout will always buy you a new 10, but if, for instance, I'm bringing the ball up in my backcourt and defense knocks it out, I'm only going to get whatever I have left in that 10. So you're not going to get a whole new 10.
That's a big adjustment.
That's a huge adjustment. Because you don't want, again, you've got to be frugal with your timeout. So if you want to try to save yourself the backcourt violation, that's one less timeout you're going to have to use for option to advance. So a defensive deflection in the backcourt, a technical on the offensive team, and then a jump ball that goes back to the offense. All of those would mean that you get whatever you got left on your 10-second count.
So, well, let me ask this question. You just mentioned where I wanted to go to on the jump ball. It's just at the beginning of the game, or in a tie situation, or will it be quarter or half as far as a second jump ball outside of?
So we tip to start.
Right.
And then the AP arrow works like it always does.
Okay.
And the time between the first and second quarter is treated just like it would be first half to second half. So whoever had the AP arrow coming out of that quarter would get it to start the next quarter.
All right.
What was the main reason for these rules changes?
Well, I will say one other thing. There's an emphasis on sportsmanship. So the image of the game. So what our game looks like to the people who are watching, just trying to get some more interest. I think having 4 end of period opportunities. So if you were watching our game, instead of flipping around and you say, oh, there's might stick around if you see there's 3 or 4 minutes left or 1 minute left, especially knowing that you don't have to inbound it under the goal anymore in a 1-point game with 2 seconds left. So there's an opportunity for some excitement, fewer stoppages, so that we get into some kind of flow. I mean, players still have to put the ball in the hole. That's huge. Also, a significant change are the fouls in the post. So in the past, people have had a hard time cutting through the lane or posting up because they have so much physicality and rough play in the post. So about several years ago, we introduced contact on the ball handler dribble. So I touch you once, I touch you again, that's a foul. Even though I didn't really move you, to try to free up dribblers. Well, a similar rule has come into play in the post. So if I'm in the lane area, which is the lane and 3 feet outside the lane, I have the ball at my back to the basket. The defense can only, with the ball, the defense can only put a forearm on you or an open hand with a bend in the elbow. That's it. So you can't body up. If they put their whole body up against them, like we see a lot of times, that's
Really?
going to be an automatic foul.
Now that is a huge change.
It's a huge change.
In the post, reckoning with post play.
That's right. So giving players a freedom to move. So when we look to your question about rules changes, a lot of it is the image of the game. Increased pace of play, getting things going, having some freedom to move, and then in the end, kids still have to put the ball in the hole. And, when you put those things together, we should see a game that people enjoy watching.
How has women's basketball changed in your career?
Wow. So 35 years ago, this year, I was on the first national championship, NCAA's first national championship team, and, it's even hard to remember back then, but significantly in the sense that, we've got a 3-point line where it is, we've got a small ball, now we're into 4 quarters, college basketball has never had 10 seconds in the backcourt up until 2 years ago when we put that in. It's nothing like what we played, and the statistics will be nothing like what it was back then. Everything's changed, but I think for the positive, because we had good players back then, and Mel was following us back then, and played on a team, 4 Final Fours. But our players were not as big and fast and strong across the country as they are now. But I also think that we had more fundamentals. I think teams were fundamentally more sound. So it's a challenge as you talk to these coaches to try to recruit kids who are fundamentally sound, so that when we make all these changes to try to enhance the speed and the pace, that they're still able to cope and put the ball in the hole. So I think significantly different, but in a positive way.
Well, I go back a little bit further than him, as you can tell, because I remember six-man basketball on both boys and girls. 6 in front, 6 in back. Ball doesn't touch the floor. 1 dribble and pass, and it was.
We're a long way from that.
Seeing as the game has come from that, at least from my lifetime, has made that jump. Adjusting to what's been mentioned before, as far as international basketball and that being a universal type of rule set, how much is the international game starting to influence, especially on the women's side, of where rule changes are going?
I think significantly. Having worked for the NCAA for the last 8 years, up until a year ago, and sitting in on these meetings and looking at the state of our game, significantly, because I think that they're looking at kids who are 12 and 13 and 14 that are shooting from the 3-point line further than ours. They're managing a 24-second shot clock and an 8-second backcourt, and they're looking at us going, why can't your kids do it? Because you've got the best players in the world in your country. So then we bring it to coaches and say, what do you think about this? And they're always a little hesitant. No one wanted to move the 3-point line back to the men's 3. No one wanted 10 seconds back. But then whenever you have it, they're going, oh man, this is great. So I think it's had a significant influence, not to mention our coaches are overseas coaching in these ways and recruiting, and they see a game that's very attractive to them. And they're bringing that back to us, and it's going out through the coaching circles and through committees, and we're ending up with some of the changes we see.